Mississippi pot roast recipe. So the one that we're making today has a creaminess to it. We're gonna add cream cheese. It makes it keto friendly and makes it even tastier. It cuts down on the sharpness of the pepperoncini juice if that's a little bit strong for you. So if you normally don't like Mississippi pot roast because it's a little bit strong tasting to you, go ahead and try this one with the cream cheese. So let me show you what it looks like. So come along with me and let's make creamy Mississippi pot roast in the Instant Pot together.
Let's take a look at the ingredients needed to make this recipe. You need a 3 to 5 pound chuck roast, 2 packets of ranch dressing or 2 ounces of ranch dressing if you're using a large container, 1.5 cups of beef broth, 6 to 8 tablespoons of butter, 1 package of cream cheese, 1 jar of pepperoncinis, they can be sliced or whole, 2 to 3 tablespoons of avocado or olive oil, 1/2 cup of Worcestershire sauce, 2 packets of brown gravy, I'm using gluten-free gravy, 2 tablespoons of Italian seasoning. If you're making it gluten-free, you'd use 1/4 cup of gluten-free flour. And if you're making it keto-friendly, you're going to use 1/4 teaspoon of xanthan gum for thickening. If you like a lot of spice, you can put in a 1/2 teaspoon of crushed red chili pepper flakes. And instead of 1.5 cups of beef broth, I decided to make my own with 1.5 cups of water and a couple of teaspoons of Better Than Bouillon paste. It comes out so flavorful and adds a lot to the roast. So give it a good stir with my whisk. I prefer to cut my roast up into large chunks. You get to sear the meat on more sides, and I think it just adds more flavor to the overall roast. So to start cooking, we're going to go ahead and put on the saute feature of our Instant Pot. Let it get warm. And you can see you can either have it on low, medium, or high for the saute. I usually like to saute on high, and if it starts burning too much, I turn it down to medium. Okay, my Instant Pot is turning on and warming up. Once it's warm, says hot, we're going to go ahead and pour in our couple tablespoons of oil. I like to use olive oil or avocado oil. Once it's ready, I go ahead and add my meat pieces. If it doesn't all fit into one batch, you can do it in 2 batches. Let it brown on each side for about 4 to 5 minutes. You want to get a nice sear. While I'm waiting for my meat to sear up, I'm going to go ahead and drain my pepperoncinis and drain out the sauce because we're going to use part of the sauce, but all of the pepperoncinis. And you can see I'm using pepperoncini slices. Now I take my beef broth. I'm going to add in my 2 packets of brown gravy and mix it well. And put this beef broth mixture aside till later. Now it's time to flip over our beef pieces. In this case, mine look like they're sticking just a little bit, but they're getting such a nice sear. Once your pieces of roast look like this, you know they're ready to come out. They have a nice sear. They're not necessarily cooked very thoroughly, they just have a nice golden brown on them. We're going to remove them from the pan. Now we have to deglaze our pan, so I'm using some of the broth mixture to go ahead and use as my liquid to deglaze the pan. And you can see it's actually starting to thicken up a little bit because of the gravy in there. Pour a little bit more. You can also just add a little bit of plain water too. It won't hurt the flavoring of the broth after it's all done if you just use a little bit. So either use a little water to deglaze, or in this case I use the beef broth gravy mixture. And you can see it actually is starting to make a little bit of a gravy. Now it's time to put the roast back in here. I'm going to insert my trivet, the one that came with the Instant Pot. Grab my pieces of seared meat and stack it up into the pot. If they need to be stacked on top of each other, that's not going to be a problem. As you can see, I added in the remaining beef broth gravy mix, 1/4 cup of pepperoncini juice. If you like more, you can put up to 1/2. I'm going to add in my 2 packets of ranch dressing, 1/4 cup of the Worcestershire sauce. You can use up to 1/2 cup if you like also. Just depends on your spice level. Put in my 2 tablespoons of Italian seasoning. And I'm going to put in 4 tablespoons of butter. Now I'm going to ensure that my ring is set firmly in the base of my lid, making sure that there's no gaps, that they're all laying flat. I'm going to put on my Instant Pot lid, lock it in place, ensure the valve is set to sealing. Since the pot was still on saute, we're going to hit cancel, hit pressure cook on high pressure, and we're going to set this for an hour and 5 minutes, which is 65 minutes. Once it was cooking and counting down for the amount of time, this is showing 2 minutes left in the cooking process time. Once it's all completed, you're going to see L000. That means the cooking time is done. And then we're going to let it sit for a natural release of 16 minutes. Now it's time to push the valve to venting. This will finish it off with a quick release of any pressure left in the pot. And once the pin drops, it's time to safely unlock the lid and see our cooked pot roast. To finish the sauce, we're going to lift the pieces of meat out of the Instant Pot. I like to use my trivet and lift up all the meat at one time. There's less breakage of the meat that way. Now we're going to give it a stir, and you can see that it's still bubbling. I'm going to put the Instant Pot onto saute to make sure it stays warm, and I'm adding the gluten-free flour. But again, if you don't want to use gluten-free flour and you're on a keto, use 1/4 teaspoon of xanthan gum with water and mix it well, and that will act as a thickening agent. Now I'm adding in the full pack of cream cheese, and I like to cut it into smaller blocks. This is going to add the creaminess to your recipe. I'm going to give it a good mix. If you need to use your whisk, go ahead and do so, but wait for the cream cheese to melt. You can see how nice and thick my sauce is already looking. I'm just waiting for that cream cheese to blend in. Now that the cream cheese has melted and fully incorporated into the sauce, it's time to add the pieces of meat back into the sauce to warm it up. At this point, after I get all the pieces of meat in, I'm going to turn the Instant Pot off and just let it sit there. There's enough heat in there to keep the meat warm. And if you're not planning to eat till later, you can put the keep warm button on, and it'll stay nice and warm until you're ready to serve it. And there you have it, creamy Mississippi pot roast in the Instant Pot. If you enjoyed this recipe, please give my video a thumbs up and comment down below. If you would like to see more of my videos, please hit the subscribe button and turn on your notification bell to be informed when my next weekly video is available. Thank you for watching, and see you next time. Bye-bye.